What's up, everybody?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Coffee Breakup.
Starring Christian Vieira.
The best. And Marvin Schultz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Whatever, boo. All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So before we begin, as always, please remember to like the video down below, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. We got our own website.
TheCoffeeBreakup.com. Check us out. We got some merch. Also, iTunes and Spotify.
Yes, if you're on the go and you can't watch us on YouTube, please hit the link in the bio and you'll see that we are on Spotify and the podcast app, iTunes, whatever you want to call it. It's on your iPhone. We got a very special guest.
Very special guest, attorney Bill Brady. What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
What's going on, Bill? We're going good.
We're good.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks you.
You're welcome. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, you know, obviously, the focus that we rely on is relationships and dating, and obviously with that comes marriage, which is kind of what you focused on, right? Well, not marriages, but again, divorces, which a lot of times do happen with marriages. So we wanted to bring you on the show and kind of talk about your profession, you know, who you are, obviously, but kind of what you do when you do divorce litigation is what you're doing, right?
Yes, it's mostly divorce litigation, dissolutions of marriage. There's other types of family law cases like the modifications of judgments that have happened in the past and relocating children, custody issues, domestic violence injunction cases, which are civil cases. And sometimes they're intertwined with the divorce case.
Before we go into all that, just give us a little bit about yourself. You know, who you are, where you're from, what do you do, what'd you study, and you know, obviously, you went to law school and all that stuff. Sure. So, stage is yours. Please go ahead.
Sure. I was born in Miami, born in Hialeah.
Get out of here!
Yeah.
No way. What hospital?
Hialeah Hospital.
Oh no, I was born in Palmetto.
Really?
Yeah.
It looked a lot different back then. It was 2 stories surrounded by palm trees. It looked like you were somewhere in South or Central America in these photographs.
Really?
Really different, drastically different. My grandparents are Italian immigrants. One of my grandparents on my father's side's Irish. We lived in Hialeah and in Miami Springs, which is right over the canal.
Get out of town. Where in Miami Springs?
My grandparents lived on Quail Avenue.
Well, where on Quill?
If you take Quail and you
the street
go
behind my parents.
Yeah, if you go east on Quail, you'll run into that big field with all the electrical lines.
Oh, the well field. I forgot what it was called.
Yeah, and then you'll hit the high school. Then the high school.
Yeah.
Right
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I went to the high school. So
did you?
that's where I met him.
We went
actually.
to Springs. So we went to Springs.
Oh,
He lives
great.
in Springs. So.
Yeah, so it was literally 2 blocks away from the house. So.
My uncle went to Miami Springs. My mother went to Hialeah High.
Okay.
Miami Springs wasn't around when she was in school, and my grandfather was in politics a little bit in Miami Springs, and they had a construction company. They built most of the houses for Eastern Airlines for the employees of Eastern Airlines. They're all the small little houses in Virginia Gardens and
Interesting.
so a little bit of history.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But you went to Columbus.
I went to Columbus.
Yeah.
We moved from Hialeah. Duplex in Hialeah, and then we moved to Richmond Heights, which is over by the highway down south near Palmetto Bay, Pinecrest area, but it's west.
Okay.
West. And then we moved from there to what is now Palmetto Bay in like 1978 or something.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago. So my mother was born here. My father's from New Jersey. He came down here. He was in the first graduating class of what is St. Thomas University now.
Yeah.
It used to be called Biscayne College.
Gee.
So
Okay.
that's my family history in the area.
Okay. And where did you go to school?
You graduated from St. Thomas with,
I did.
but your undergrad, or that was your law?
Right.
That was law school.
Okay.
Law school. I went to undergrad to the University of Florida.
Okay. Awesome.
Go Gators.
Similar
Gator
to Ricky.
So what made you want to get into law? I mean, is that something that you kind of stumbled into?
Yeah, you know, when I was in high school, I was surrounded by lawyers. My father was a private investigator, and he had his own agency, but he predominantly worked for lawyers. Mm-hmm. So his office was like 4 or 5 blocks away from Columbus on Bird Road, near 87th Avenue.
Yeah.
And so I would go over there after practice or after school and hang out there, and started working, like doing little things in the office.
That's
you know,
funny.
they'd pay me a few bucks, and just watching them, you know, doing their jobs, preparing for trial, and putting exhibits together and watching them, with their clients and dealing with their clients, it grew on me a little bit, and I got interested in the legal field that way.
Okay. And what did they practice?
They practiced predominantly personal injury, accident cases, but there was a lawyer in there that also did a lot of commercial and business litigation. He also handled divorce cases.
Is that kind of how you stumbled? Because have you always been doing only family law, or is this kind of something you?
No, when I first got out of school, I worked for a small law firm. It was just a sole practitioner, and he practiced a lot of employment law, discrimination, sexual harassment, and also ADA work, Americans with Disabilities. We filed lawsuits against the major schools in town, the major colleges in town. Also a lot of hotels on South Beach to get them to follow the Americans with Disability Act, which came out in 1991 or 1992. So there was a lot of violations of those cases. So we sued to have those TTYs put in at the colleges, note takers for deaf students. We worked to have the police departments always have someone on duty who speaks American Sign Language, things like that. That's what he was into, and
my goodness.
They were all federal cases, some state cases, some federal. But there was another lawyer in the office who also did family law, and I got into that as well at a young stage. I was 25 when I got out of school, and so that's what I did first.
So you've been in the industry for over 2 decades, right? 20 plus years.
Been 26 years already. Yeah.
And do you want to? So personally, do you want to talk about that a little bit? His personal life. Do you want to maybe tell? Are you currently dating? Are you married?
I am dating a little bit, not much right now. I'm really busy. I mean, there is somewhat of interest.
That's great, though.
Someone I'm interested in,
That's great, though.
So, but is it? I mean, you've been married, right? Is that accurate?
Yes, I've been married twice, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I married when I was 26. My daughter, she was unexpected. We weren't married. We married following that, and my daughter's 23 now. She's in law school right now.
Oh wow.
Awesome.
So we were married. We were young.
How long were you guys together? Did you guys stay together?
We were together for 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
We were together before that for a long time.
Right.
Okay.
But
too young.
We were young. I was
partying.
She was a teacher. She was making a lot more money than me.
You were in UF, probably partying it up.
Well, no, I was back here, but yeah, we were young. We were both young, and we come from traditionally Catholic families, so we got married and divorced, and I think my daughter was like 3 or 4 at the time when we divorced.
So you got divorced, and then you ended up. How long were you? I guess single for until you got married again.
I was single for a while, for about 12 years.
Wow,
12 years.
How was that for you? I mean, you got married so young, but you also divorced so young. Was it there were part of you maybe who said, I'm not even going to deal with this again, especially in the field you were already.
Yeah, were you already working within a family? Yeah, like with.
No, at the time actually I wasn't. Okay. I wasn't working much in family law. I was handling mostly the employment cases still, and we handled appeals for some big firms that didn't want to do their own appeals.
Okay.
So no, I really wasn't into the family law until maybe my 10th year as a lawyer. So I've probably been doing family law pretty much exclusively for like 16 years.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. And then you got married again. And how long was that second marriage?
A few years.
Okay.
A few years. She was a lot younger than I was. She was a great person.
Yeah.
But we just didn't work out.
Yeah. Do you think that now, especially within the field that you're working in, like the practices, does that kind of hold you back from wanting to revisit another partner and to graduate to marriage?
It used to, I think.
Yeah. This is, it's interesting. I mean, cause especially, that being your field of everything that I'm sure you see, and, you yourself, you have experience of, being married, divorced. It's almost like from all, like, is there trauma almost of everything that you've seen that goes on to revisit?
I think I might have post-traumatic
Really?
syndrome.
PTSD.
Yeah, man, it's a little scary.
Well, a psychologist I saw one time told me.
Really?
Post-traumatic stress syndrome from dealing with the cases I have to deal with.
So
Oh my
from
goodness,
other
it's true.
divorces, not
from my own.
Yeah.
No, but I'm sure there's still there's a translation from what you've seen to maybe getting back into the field of like, oh man, I don't, I saw this, man. I don't want to. What if that happens to me? I don't
Exactly.
Right.
That's tough. That's a tough position to be in.
It's tough. I've learned to kind of. I know it sounds terrible, but I compartmentalize.
You
I have different boxes that I put things in.
Right.
You know, just as a mechanism to get through.
Oh my goodness.
To get through it sometimes, but I've learned to not have it involved in my own life. Try to keep it separate.
Well, yeah, because all day you essentially you deal with other people's problems, right? And so you have to avoid that it translates into your own life, right? So
absolutely,
it could be hard.
Definitely affects you.
But you love what you do.
I do. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do not. Sometimes I hate it.
Really?
Sometimes I'm in the middle.
Right.
But it's gratifying to get a result, and make a
especially
difference
in
in somebody's life. Yeah, it's people are at their worst. They're at their worst. They're stressed out. They're anxious. They're uncertain, and that is all piled onto you because they're your client. So, whenever you can make that better for people to move on,
right.
It's gratifying. And if you're helping a family stay healthy or get healthy, there's a lot of unhealthy things that people are going through.
Is that how you like compartmentalize, like from when your clients like sort of throwing everything at you? Is that like, how do you maintain that kind of level head and not let it really affect you?
A barrier.
Because I'm sure like you get so involved sometimes. Right?
When I was younger, I would get so worked up.
Right.
I was really overly angry, overly sad. I wanted to help too much.
Right.
Take it personally, really internalize it. As I've gotten older, I've learned to stay away from it, but to also, have compassion for people, for both sides. I mean, you can't follow. Sometimes people want to hurt one another in these cases.
Yeah, being vicious.
Some lawyers go along with that because it's easy because it's just what your client wants. But it's I don't do that.
How do you tackle that when you get when people come to you? Because is it one party? Is there a middle ground, right? Or how often is there a middle ground? Or do you feel like, okay, I got to represent my person, and then whatever they say goes?
Well, if the middle ground is somewhere that's fair and it's healthy for the family, I'm going to go for that. Dealing with clients, sometimes you have to I have let clients go because I've given them the message on what needs to be done and how they need to behave and treat the other person, but then they don't, and they have an agenda to get back at someone. They'll get it for a vendetta. So sometimes I'll have to let the client go, or sometimes they see that I'm going to let them go and they change their behavior. But sometimes good people act really badly.
Yeah, so you
don't realize it.
You approach it pretty much with empathy. You want to make sure that it's fair. You don't want to overdo it. So, but there are other attorneys that would say, well, no, we're going to drive them into the dirt.
Absolutely. There definitely are. A lot of lawyers are good. A lot of lawyers think the same way I do, though, as well. So
you think that's a better approach than to just say, well, if my client says this, so we're going to go for the neck?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the family.
Yeah.
Healthy family. To advocate for something unfair, to sell someone short, it's only going to hurt the children that they share.
Sure, that's
100%. I guess when people come to you, they're at their lowest point, and a lot of times there's a lot of emotions involved. And I think part of your responsibility is be unbiased and be like, hey, this is maybe what's best, right? Or from a unique perspective, right? Because rather than being emotionally invested, you kind of do what's, I guess, legally best or best for the family.
I think that family law lawyers, there should be training to deal with the mental health issues, to deal with the dysfunction issues, the domestic violence that you have to deal with in these cases. But there's some there's some like seminars and continued legal education courses out there, but nothing's really required. I think it should be required because a lot of that's not really, not enough attention's given to it.
Right, man. So I mean, you've seen probably a crazy amount of cases and from disastrous, and even you've been, I guess, divorced twice. So marriage in itself, is it even advisable? Is it worth it?
Especially now that there's like this whole movement forwards of people that are just saying, what's the point? I think before it was a lot more traditionally accepted. Now I think it's like, whatever.
Well, yeah, the marriage rate is down.
Sure.
It's been going down for quite a while.
And what do you think is
so many different types of families? You could have a family and not be married.
Right.
Some people think it's too complicated to be married, or they don't think it's necessary. Whereas, maybe 30 years ago, that was like, that didn't exist.
If you weren't married by 20, you were a failure.
Right. And you would not, and the divorce rate was way, was a lot lower.
So can we also say that the divorce rate now is lower because there are less marriages?
Well, if you look at the number of marriages, the divorce rate might be around the same, but just there's less divorces. I guess you could say.
Yeah. But I think by percentage, it's probably the same.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, I mean, I feel like also back then, people weren't as willing to get a divorce, right? Like people be married, and it's even when things are bad, it's like, well, like
that's my partner.
Divorce, yeah, and divorce is pretty much frowned upon. Like you don't, back then you didn't really get divorced unless it's like
right. Well, things are more progressive now.
Right. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
There's men and women work, husbands and wives work. There's two people working in most households. So, it's looked at differently. Society's changing tremendously.
Right.
Over the past 15, 20 years with the internet and with, podcasts like this, appearing at hearings virtually, working from home, Zoom, we'll have to see what kind of impact that has on relationships. Who knows?
That's true.
There's a reluctancy for people to marry, but when they do, they should have their affairs in order. A lot of divorces happen because of financial reasons.
You think that's like the number one reason? Finances?
Pretty much.
But do you think it's because they just don't plan beforehand, or things just collapse when they realize that they may be bit off too much more than they can chew?
Both, for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, both. Not having your things in order first.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they go into a marriage too emotionally, not really understanding the repercussions of the legalities of it and everything that's involved. It's not so much, I love you so much, where we should get married. It's, what is the point of marriage? Marriage, it's more, I want to say more religious, in that aspect, because again, I really don't understand the whole, like, if there's any tax benefits or anything like that. But they even say, like, if you do get married, it's kind of worse for your finances in that aspect.
Well, I mean, it's better from an income tax perspective. Filing jointly,
it's better
with a family is, you definitely get better tax treatment with the tax code.
But if you weigh the pros and cons of the chance, like if I guess you don't want to go into marriage like, if it's gonna go wrong, right? But ultimately,
true.
I mean, you have to be.
But you can't go in there just emotionally because I like you so much. I guess we should get married. It's more so, are we in a position where we feel like this is gonna be beneficial to the relationship?
100%. And I feel like, I guess 100 people aren't really as prepared, which is what you were saying. A lot of people get married and they don't know the depth that the other person has, right? Or they don't have a financial picture maybe of everything that's going on, how much this person is really making and
or how much they're spending.
Their spending habits, that all ties down to, I guess,
savings.
Yeah.
Sure. That's, people who save money and people who don't, right?
Yeah.
It's the same whether you're married or you're not married. One of the good things about being married is that, if you have two people that have a source of income, you're living under one roof, you can plan for your future.
Yeah, less rent.
If you're
rent is cheaper.
Yeah, it's I've seen people that have been married for a long time, with the good careers. They've had kids, they've sent their kids to college, and at the end of the road, they've got a good little fortune put together for their retirement. So, there's good things about staying together for a long period of time, like my parents.
Right. But if you've seen them as clients, then later on get a divorce, or is that something you just kind of?
Well, I've seen people get divorced later in life.
Sure.
You know, some people call them the silver divorce. They have all kinds of names, you know, little nicknames for them. But yeah, sometimes people are married for 50. I have case now. People they've been married for 51 years and they're divorcing, and they have real estate and retirement accounts and pensions.
Oh boy,
That's rough.
They were able to, you know, stay together and pool their resources together, and
but now they want to quit. They want to cut it.
yes. Yeah.
And I guess the longer that you've been married, the harder it is, right? To
Get comfortable, right?
yeah, from that aspect, like, you know, like probably, especially if you're like a little later on in life, you know, like you're gonna go and be single and date again. That's hard.
But it's not just that. It's like, I mean, at this point, like,
What's the point?
yeah, like we have like a couple years left before we kick the can.
Yeah, that's what they think, you know. They want to, maybe things aren't going well and they're older, but they want to have the last few years to enjoy.
But, you know, to go back on that is because when you've been married for so long, like now the pension, the 401k, you've been married for that long, all that has to, legally speaking, has to be split, right? I mean,
Yes.
especially when you're at that point.
So when you're dealing with assets, you've got, sometimes there's assets that existed before the marriage. So those are premarital assets. Those would be things that would be carved out that we would give back to that, you know, let that person keep those premarital assets. But then there's assets that they acquired during the marriage. Could be, you know, money, could be real estate, could be stock accounts, pensions.
Even if that money that was earned is assigned to one person.
Yes, it's
like I make my
regardless.
money and it goes into an account, but because I'm married, they're now entitled to that money that I've earned.
Yes, it doesn't. Regardless of whose name it's in, whether it's joint accounts or your account or your wife's account, if it was realized or earned or amassed by interest, you know, during the marriage, then it's considered to be a marital asset that has to be equitably divided at the end if they were to divorce. Sometimes we're dealing with like a piece of real estate. If on the day you're married, your house is worth, let's say, $100,000, then on the day you divorce or the day you file your case, it's worth 500. Well, that it went up by 400 during the marriage, so therefore it's 200 for her, 200 for him, or you know, and you know, that's how it's dealt with. But if one of the spouses own the house before the marriage, then that first 100 belongs to that spouse, you know.
So if I buy a property before I get married and then we got married but even if I bought it, but the fact that we've been living together and we're married, now she's entitled to a portion of that property because of the marriage.
Right. As the marriage goes on, the longer it goes on, that property is going up in value. So
that's
you all would have to split the appreciation.
Appreciation, that's the
You
word.
have to split the appreciation.
Really?
Yeah, that's how generally it works.
Okay.
I mean, you both have lived there for so long. I mean, even though you put the down payment.
But if you bought the place and it's your place, and then
but you didn't buy it free and clear either. But even if you did, but she's also living there. She's also, you know, putting, you know,
caring for it.
Yeah, cleaning it, you know, just like you do.
Did you get an appraisal on the day you got married?
Yeah, right.
To see what it's worth.
Yeah, you gotta do that.
You gotta do all that.
Oh
stuff.
No, you're in trouble. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I guess it varies by state to state, right? Obviously, you know, like there's different laws in terms of where you live. So everything you pretty much you when stuff you bring into the marriage kind of is excluded, right?
It's excluded as best that it can be excluded. Let's say you had a large amount of money that you brought into the marriage. If you keep it separate in a separate account the whole time, and it's building interest, and it's never mixed.
That's a fight. That's a fight.
That could lead to a fight. So you never mixed it up with your other accounts and money.
Yeah.
You kept it separate. Then you didn't commingle it. So that means that money remains your separate money premarital. But once you commingle it with other money, then it loses its separateness.
Oh man, yeah.
It's there's a lot of different little
like
details. Yeah. If you own the house and you deed it to yourself and to your wife, like a lot of things, or to your husband or to your partner, it loses its separateness. It becomes like a gift to the marriage. So that's another.
Well, yeah, when we had Ricky on, he had said that you can own a house, and then if you just add like your spouse to the deed, then now like everything is split down the middle. Even though you're the one that bought the house, even though that you paid for it, they now own.
It's a presumption. It's a presumption that it's marital. I've in all these years, I've never seen anyone overcome the presumption. I can't imagine, I can't imagine how to overcome it. It could have been for convenience or for tax reasons or something like that. But it's you're climbing uphill to try to overcome that. It's going to be considered, if a marital asset. The premarital asset is converted to a marital asset.
Interesting. Wow. I'm
looking at your website, right? And there is a couple of things that you file under that you have under what you practice. Sure. There's alimony, child support, child relocation, divorce, domestic violence, modifications of prior orders, paternity actions, premarital and postmarital agreements, and same-sex family law. Do you have maybe a preference? Do you have maybe a strong suit, or do you have one that you just hate out of all of these? There's got to be some. Let's start with, do you have one that you do more often than not, or do they all kind of commingle with each other?
Well, the most common is going to be the dissolution case, the action for dissolution, a divorce case.
Right.
Let me see.
And I can imagine like all these other things may tie into it, because if then they have children, child support. If one doesn't work, there's alimony, or for whatever other reason there is. So,
well, domestic violence makes everything more difficult. It used to be that the domestic violence case was separate from the divorce case. It was a different action. They're still different actions, but what they've been doing for the past several years, they assign the domestic violence case to the same judge that's handling the family law case.
Oh, really?
Makes sense, right? Because then the judge gets to see everything.
Yeah, the full picture.
Yeah,
it's not now separate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So they consolidate the two cases. When someone goes and files an injunction, automatically the system will consolidate them. There's a consolidation clerk that handles it. And if they miss it, we contact the clerk and they consolidate it so the judge hears it. But the one thing I don't like is when the domestic violence, it gets in the way of handling, the case. It complicates it.
How so?
Well, there's people that litigate and settle on terms, and because they're intimidated, or because
because of the partner that was abusing them.
Sure, yeah, it happens. My daughter actually put together a symposium, a seminar program for a judge that she clerked for. She did a really great job, but it illustrates the ways that domestic violence will affect the way cases go. That's just that happens in maybe 1 out of 10.
This is rare compared to the others.
Yeah, it's not too
that common,
but that's something that comes to mind, because I don't really hate any of it.
Right, some of it's the wrong term.
Yeah. No, but some of it's definitely much more difficult to deal with. Right. We use the word custody a lot. We don't use the word custody that much anymore, but I still do, because that's what people understand, But in court, we're not really allowed to use the word custody anymore. We're not supposed to.
So what's the word? Is there a synonym for it?
Time sharing.
Oh, yeah, you said that on the phone yesterday when we spoke. You said timeshare. I thought you guys actually owned a timeshare. I thought
that's what that's what you meant too.
Well, sometimes we have to divide up the timeshare right, as an asset.
So actually sharing time with the child.
Right. Sometimes we'll say that, the parent who the child lives with mostly, that's how you determine what the school district is. So we say that's the primary residential parent.
Right, but if they're together, how do you determine?
If they live together,
right? If the parents live together,
yeah, the parents live together and they want a divorce. How does that get determined? Who has more time?
That is one of the difficult things,
really,
to determine if both of them feel that, they want to have the children for a majority of the time.
There was, I mean, I don't know if this is still the case, but obviously there was a big presumption of usually that the woman, the mother,
I think stereotypically
has more, but legally speaking, has more of a right to be with the child, right? Or is this,
I mean, stereotypically, I mean, that's always what you see, that the woman's the one, or the mother's the one that
keeps the kid, custody
has
of the
more
kid?
time sharing. Is that the way to say it? Custody.
Yeah, traditionally it was like that. It's still there to a degree.
Really?
Is
But
there a reason?
much less, it's the father has much more levity now. For the past several years.
What
changed things? It's changed since I started practicing.
And what do you attribute? So how come it was like that before? Is it because they were the birth giver, or were there certain things that said, well, we got to lean on the woman's side?
Well, I think it's hard to say. We've been slowly trying to get rid of stereotypes, I guess, all across the board, for the past 20 years. So that's one of the things. It's one of the effects of it, I think. But it used to be that the mother would the court looked at it like the mother must be with the young children of a tender age. They would say the tender age. That's a tender year. The father's, is not equipped for that. We got to wait till the child's 6 or. But
why? Like what?
I don't know. It's
really
there's no law, but there's no law in particular.
No, it's just like
that.
Just cuz.
Right.
Yeah. So there's some judges. There's some judges that would. The mother would say, the child can't go with him. I'm breastfeeding.
At that age.
And
right.
the judge would say, well, I think you should go buy a breast pump and pump some bottles for him to bring with him to his house, unless you want your child to just have regular formula.
Oh, wow.
I'm telling you, I've heard it before.
That judge got some balls.
Yeah, because the father, holding a kid, holding a child, feeding a child, that's all bonding. It's all part of the bonding, whether you're the mother or whether you're the father. So the courts, they eventually saw that, and it's fathers take children at young ages for time sharing overnight.
Right.
As long as someone's not like unfit, like have some sort of substance abuse problem, or they're dangerous or just so irresponsible. If there's no glaring problem, if the father wants it and can do it, he's going to have significant time sharing, if not 50-50 with the child, if he wants it, if he shows he can do it. So then
it could be 50-50.
If
they're both equipped, they can both kind of.
Sure. I think you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis.
Sure.
I'm for 50-50 if it doesn't inconvenience the parties, and it's not just to have the 50-50. If it serves the children, there's a lot of situations that I would not push for 50-50. I don't think it's appropriate, but there are times when it is.
So when you have 50-50, right, is there still a need or for let's say child support, right? I mean, obviously child support is a very common thing. Most of the time the man pays the woman, but if we're 50-50, why am I paying you?
Well, if the woman is the breadwinner, she'll be paying the husband time.
So it goes based on
finance.
your financial records, obviously, how much you make.
Definitely. That's a good question, because a lot of people have a misconception that just because they have 50-50, that means that there's no child support obligation, but that's not the case. You have to look at we consider the income of each party, then we consider what the daycare costs are if someone else has to care for the kids and what the cost is, and then the cost of health care insurance. And then we look at the number of overnights that each person has. So the number of overnights will affect the child support. So if someone has 50-50, it's definitely going to affect the support. If there's a small amount of overnights, child support's going to be a lot more. But there's plenty of cases where there is 50-50, but there still is child support because of the difference in the incomes.
Is there ever how often do you come across where there's a divorce, one has to pay child support and alimony to their partner? Is that common?
Yes, it's common.
That sucks. Because it's like your entire income is now like it's like you got to pay it all to the other partner.
Well, the system is designed, or the legal system has been developed to the point where we're reaching a fair result on that, whether it's by settlement or by a judge's decision. Alimony is to support the other person, to bring them up to a level that was close to, doesn't have to be at the level of the lifestyle during the marriage, but it has to be as high as it can be.
While still
the other
fair.
person that can provide for it. Yeah, being fair. So there's the main two factors are the person's need, and the other factor is the payor's
capacity.
Capacity, ability to pay. It's a balancing act. So, every case is different. There is no calculation. There's no computer program. There's no statute that tells you how much alimony.
Well, someone's got to determine this, though, right?
Right.
So who's case by case, right? I mean
the judge determines it.
Without crunching numbers. Hey, by the way, you make this.
They do crunch numbers. But
let me see what
they do crunch numbers, but there's a lot of discretion.
Okay.
Meaning that they make a decision.
Yeah.
And in order to challenge that decision, you have to prove on appeal that there was an abuse of the discretion. And that's very hard to prove in the alimony context. That's why there's been so much of a push by people who believe that it should be codified. There should be a system according to the length
formula or something.
Yeah,
I can spit something out that will make sense.
The statute would give it a framework, but the statute's been up for to get approved by the legislature a few times now, and it's been turned. It's been denied. So, I have mixed reviews on pigeonholing each marriage and each family according to the length of the marriage, the amount of money you make, the percentage that this person makes, the percentage that that person makes, because that usually I think we're getting close to it with the judge's decision. We're getting close to it at settlement because both lawyers know what the law is, and you're negotiating back and forth, and you find a middle ground. So I think we're doing that. If we codify it, then I think you're kind of taking away the individual cases, like the things that make each case different, So
okay, that's fair.
I don't know. We'd have to look at the statute and maybe make it so that there is a little bit of discretion here and there. But right now, that's what makes doing what we do an art and not a science.
Sure, that
so
is true.
It's it's a little bit of an unknown. So sometimes it scares people into settling the case, whether you're the payee or the payor. Who knows what the judge will decide? So
oh my god, exhilarating!
It kind of encourages the case to settle.
That's awesome.
Sometimes.
So when it comes to alimony, I mean, so automatically, so who gets it, right? So if I'm if I work and I'm the sole provider financially, and obviously my partner's at home, are they automatically entitled to that alimony if you get a divorce, or
well?
Do you have to be married for so many years?
Well, there's different forms of alimony. Like if it's a short-term marriage, or maybe a moderate-term marriage, and one person has been out there working, the other person's been caring for the family, or if one person makes a lot more than the other person, in a marriage like that where it's short or moderate, you're going to have what's called rehabilitative alimony. Alimony, like if you were to get injured in an accident or a sports injury, you need time to rehabilitate to get better before you can start playing the sport again, right? So, same concept to get you on your feet, to get you back into the workforce, to get you into another living situation.
But
so that's rehabilitative.
What if they abuse and say, "I've been trying to get a job and I haven't been able to"? I mean, there's a lot of people now who they're refusing to go work because they're getting paid more by the government, right, Marvin? Not you, but you were no, because he didn't have a job for a certain amount of time, and you were getting what is it called? I'm thinking financial aid,
unemployment.
Yeah. But I know I've heard of other stories. Like, for example, I saw a post the other day. There was a McDonald's, whatever. But they were giving people who were interviewing $50 just to interview because nobody wanted to work at McDonald's. They would rather live off of unemployment. So couldn't that same thing apply for alimony, where it's like, well, I'm trying to find a job, but I haven't been able to?
Well, yes, it is an issue. Yes. Someone who is looking for work, they must keep track of their efforts, because they may have to show the court that they've been doing their best to get a position somewhere, and that that to get the best alimony or spousal support from the court, they want to prove that they've been making their best efforts, but they've been unsuccessful. There's so many different considerations. A lot of times people have to go out into the workforce, but they have the children too. So they're not at a skill level where they can make enough money to make it worth not paying someone else to take care of their kids while they're at work. So sometimes we try to get someone into a new field, job training or vocational training, because the person might not have skills, and maybe they were home, taking care of the kids. It's like, is it sounding familiar to you guys?
No, that was a scoff though. But no.
Yes, as we talk about these issues, you, me, maybe your audience, things hit home because they're thinking of, hey, that's me.
That's
the
goal. I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal.
So, there's so many different situations when it comes to alimony, child support, and taking care of kids. I mean, kids, it's expensive to take care of kids in the right way. So when they're used to having a parent at home, and that's not happening anymore, and now you're going to have 2 rent payments instead of 1. You're going to have 2 mortgage payments instead of 1. Electric, FP&L bill, cable bill.
It adds up.
Yeah, if you add all that up, you're still running on the same amount of income, but you have 2 households for a period of time. It's very difficult, for a lot of people.
I had something written down here that I really wanted to ask.
Sure.
And in terms of, obviously, divorces are messy. Now you're talking about even kids are involved. Let's say, we're here in Miami. I got a divorce. You know what? I want to leave. I want to move out of Miami, right? And I have kids. How does that work in terms of, especially now everybody, people are moving, and everything that's going on, relocating for work or whatever. Who's to say that, okay, like the kid has to stay here, or I can relocate with the child, like, right? Like, where does the judgment come from?
Child relocation here is one of the topics.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, child relocation.
Child relocation is exactly what you're talking about. There's a Florida statute on relocation. There's several factors that the court considers in determining whether to grant a relocation, whether it's to see whether it's in the best interest of the child. The court wants to protect the relationship that the child has with the other parent, of course. And if you move away, more than 50 miles is a relocation. If you move away, it may devastate the relationship with the other parent, especially if the other parent has a close bond with them and sees them all the time.
Right.
Spends a lot of time with them. That's actually one of the factors.
Really?
What is the time sharing schedule now? Is it followed? I've had cases where we were able to get the relocation because the time sharing was in writing, but the actually following through on the time sharing was very spotty. Not very so. I was like, my argument was, Your Honor, whether she lives in Miami or whether she lives in Orlando is irrelevant. It doesn't matter because the former husband's only seen the children an average of 2 times a month. So,
but if on paper it says that they're doing it by the book,
right?
How does that get identified? Does someone say no? Like does a father say, listen, I've only seen him twice this month?
That you have to present evidence that it hasn't been followed.
Okay.
It hasn't been followed. Got to keep a journal. got to keep track of the overnights and the times that have been canceled. Because and then another consideration is, okay, you want to move away. What can you do to keep the bond between that parent going at the same level? And then the person that's relocating, like that example I gave you to Orlando, they may propose to the court, you know what, I'll drive the kids down to Miami every 2 weeks so he can spend time with them. He can take them for the weekends. I'll cooperate. I'll put them on a flight. I'll pay for this. I'll pay for that. And that's one of the things that the court will consider also. The court will also consider if, a lot of times people are moving away for a better job, for better pay, for a lower housing expense. We're starting to see that now because you all know what's happening in Miami.
Everyone's coming.
The housing.
Oh yeah, there's an increase in the market, which I mean, everyone says that there's a bubble. Who knows? But I do know that there's a lot of people from out of state that are moving down here. A lot of even companies and corporations are migrating down here.
Right. And what are they doing? They're overpaying for rent. They're overpaying to purchase. They're pricing out the people that live in Miami for this housing. So
I read an article actually.
It's tough here. It's getting tough.
Yeah, like a day or two ago, I read an article that I don't know how many millennials I guess they surveyed, but pretty much with the rates being so low, especially during COVID, a lot of them purchased a home, and I would have to look for the percentages, but a lot of them were saying like, they did not expect, my mortgage is too high, or the maintenance is too much, or I bought a house that was too big, or there's so many other factors because people were just kind of panic buying because the rates were so low that now they're realizing that, oh, I can't afford this. And I think that this is the bubble that we're going to be visiting, where people realize that they've bit off way more than they can chew because the rates were low and everyone was buying, and I heard that people are actually waiting. They're selling their spot in a wait list for just to be on the wait list to purchase a pre-construction home. And there's something like realtors will buy that spot and then they'll sell it to an actual person who wants to buy it for a couple thousands of dollars. That's how crazy it's gone here.
I could see that combined with the cost of building materials.
Yeah,
that's true.
It's like a sheet of plywood went from like $4 or $5 to like $70.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
So people are looking to other alternatives because of housing, because of daycare costs too. When housing goes up, everything goes up. All the costs of everything will go up in our community here. We've been lucky that we've got a lot of tourism.
True.
But let me tell you, the people that work, hospitality workers, they're going to get priced out of the market too. Even the rentals that you think are low are not going to be low anymore.
Right. I mean,
even for me, like, because where I live right now, man, nonstop people moving in. there's no unit available. Like, there's nonstop people moving in.
I actually checked.
Yeah. Really?
Nothing available.
There's nothing available. When I moved in a year ago, right before, literally March 1st of 2020, it's half the complex was empty, and virtually now there's no space available. So. Just to go back over what you were saying, I mean, people are moving here by the thousands. It's. But
I think the majority of them, I mean, aren't they more? I don't want to say Hispanics, but I know that there's a lot of tourism when it comes from like South America, where they're coming here, or establishing businesses over here. So a lot of them, I feel like they have the money to live here, and they're saying, well, I can afford that, so let's just pay it. And then the complexes are saying, well, if they're willing to pay this much, we don't have any availability. We're gonna have to raise it once they leave because someone else is willing to pay for it.
Right. That's the trend.
But it's scary. I mean, I feel like it's turning into like what is it? Times Square in New York or LA, where in order for you to live in New York, you can't live in the city. You got to live out in the suburbs. You got to live in the Bronx. You got to live in Brooklyn in order to afford it.
In Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, it's people from Central and South America. And it's also people from the United States, from New York.
And I heard that I know there's a lot of what is it? I forgot what it was, but those big banks, the investment banks. I forgot which one it was, or like just these big corporations from New York. They're just like moving up to like Boca or Palm Beach in that area because they're just trying to get better taxes and even everything else. The weather is another aspect.
Right. We don't have a state income tax in Florida, so that's a big issue. And also some companies. Some of these tech companies that are moving to Wynwood and to downtown Miami, to these these empty spaces.
Oh yeah.
They're getting incentives to move, and they're getting really low rent to move in to start. So Miami's attracting a lot of that too, and they need housing also.
Yeah.
It's so relocating with children. I think it's going to become easier to relocate from Miami to another part of the country because of the cost of living.
It's like flushing everybody
housing.
out.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it in one case I've had recently.
Okay.
Where it's a big factor, and it's our main argument.
So when you get a divorce, you can't just take your kids and be like, hey, I'm out of here. It has to go through the courts.
You have to send a special notice to the other side. Then the other side has a period of time to object to it, and then once they file that objection, then you have to file a relocation action, or you can just file the action, and they have a certain time to respond. But it's not easy. But I do see a little bit of light. It's a little more liberal now. It used to be a lot harder, but now because of the financial constraints, it's loosening up a little bit, but it's still not easy.
Yeah,
it's 50 miles.
50 is not that much.
No, it's not much, but I actually had a case that wasn't a relocation. It was like 26 miles, but because the traffic conditions are so bad for this particular commute,
It like mitigates that.
Yeah, my argument was that this 26-mile move is going to destroy my client's time with the kids because he can't make it to school to pick them up. Yeah. He can't drive them, and then they're in traffic. They're driving in.
It's virtually like it's more than 50 miles.
They can't make it to swimming or whatever because, and he, they were living close together in the east part of Kendall area, and one person moved far away, and he can't keep his same schedule, so we're opposing the move. And they're changing the schools too. They're changing
so that would pretty much force either of them to either move closer, right? Like even if so we have a kid together, so no, you're gonna have to meet me halfway.
Yeah. Right. My client owns a home down here. He's involved in the community down here. He's from here. So it would be really hard for him to sell that house and get into another house.
Just to be less than 50 miles away.
Just to get close to be up in Broward.
Sheesh.
Near the kids, so he can still spend that same time with them. So every case is different.
Sure.
And it's 50 miles, not the route, but we say as the crow flies.
So
50 miles as the crow flies, straight across. You imagine.
So it doesn't count. It doesn't account for maybe a turn or anything like that. That's
going east on 826.
Right.
Just imagine during rush hour, leaving the Dadeland Mall area, get on 826, get to 836, then take 836 north to I-95. Imagine doing that at 5:15. I mean, it's like it's crippling.
Yeah, I know.
So that's been an issue in some of our cases, and it's. Some of the cases are different. They're interesting.
Wow, that's fascinating. One thing I've had written down as well was I've heard of cases where people get divorces and one spouse is making the other person pay for the attorney fees. Is that a thing? I mean, how is that even possible? When I guess if maybe that person isn't working, right? They can prove that they need the financial need to have a lawyer paid for.
That's another good question. The way that the statute is designed is to allow both people to have a good lawyer. So if one person has all the money or is in control of the money or earns the money, the other person doesn't, that other person has to help with the attorney's fees of the person who can't pay. It's based upon the ability to pay, the statute, so that people can lawyer up and be happy with the lawyer they have. And there's claims for attorney's fees all the time. I just had a big hearing 2 weeks ago on attorney's fees.
Yeah, but people can abuse that because, right, if I don't make the money, but my partner does, and they make a lot of money, and I want to be spiteful, I want to pick the most expensive lawyer I can find.
No, but I mean,
pay them,
would that work that way?
Right.
Sometimes it happens.
Maybe you can make the argument for a very good lawyer, right?
Right.
Or what if there's like a corrupt lawyer and says, hey, look, I'll charge you a little bit more and then I'll split, break you off so you can get.
Well,
I'm sure that exists.
I'm sure. Well, sometimes I look at lawyers' hourly rates and I'm like, wow, that's way too high for what the client's getting.
Sucks.
Like my rates can be high, but
True, but think about it. I mean, at the end of the day, if the other person were to win, then they would have to pay. No, or if you win, they would have to pay your fee.
Not even if you win, you could lose and still get fees.
So you get screwed either way.
Well, the court is there to make sure that it's fair, or to try to make sure that it's fair. If you take a really unreasonable, ridiculous position, like something very far-fetched, that it should have never been done, the judge could look at that and say, I'm not going to award you fees for that, for all that effort, because it was not reasonable. It wasn't done in good faith. The judge could say, no, I'm not going to award you fees, even though you need the fees, and even though he or she has the superior ability to pay it. But if you're taking a reasonable position and you lose, it doesn't mean that you're not entitled to fees. You could still be entitled to fees if you don't have the ability to pay your lawyer. But that's why the judges are there to look at the rate that they're charging, look at the lawyer's credentials and their experience to determine whether the rate is reasonable or not, and to look at the hours, the time spent. Is this reasonable? Is this too high? Is this too low? And then the other side can even bring in another lawyer as an expert on fees to testify that
who pays that guy?
Yeah,
Who gets,
and that's more fees that he gets.
I've served as a fees expert.
Really?
I have hired fees experts to
Really?
review the billing and to tell me, is this reasonable or not? Sometimes the expert's like, yes, I'm testifying that Bill Brady's records, I reviewed his
Accurate.
records. They're reasonable time, reasonable rate. I believe that it's reasonable for the court to order this. Sometimes the other experts like saying, oh, I think Bill Brady's rate is too high. He shouldn't be charging this rate, or that I spent too much time on an item or a task.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it gets real nitpicky. A lot of times it doesn't,
like
but a lot of times it doesn't. We can usually work out those fees. Once you've been a lawyer for a while, you kind of know the other lawyers, and you can work with them. And in the long run, not litigating fees, not litigating like temporary support, temporary alimony, and it probably saves thousands of dollars if you can settle them in a fair way, because those are like a trial. It's like going to trial twice, for the same case.
Have you ever had somebody come to you with such a compelling story, almost like where you said, maybe they weren't in a financial position to hire you, but you felt, hey, listen, I can do this. I can represent them in the best way.
Make that guy pay my fees.
And did you did you do maybe something for pro bono or something like that, where you're like,
yeah, I have done cases pro bono where I don't charge anything.
Right.
I have taken cases that were not pro bono, but they kind of turned into pro bono. And I just knew the person wouldn't be able to pay at towards the end, but it happens. Sometimes you look at a case and the person doesn't have the ability to hire you or to pay you, or they can only pay you a small amount of money, but you review the case to know that the other person has that ability to pay you, and you hold, you don't collect anything at the front, but you make a claim in the case and you help the person.
so you've actually been paid by the other party, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Yes. Sometimes it's by settle, we agree to it. Sometimes it's because a judge orders it. Sometimes they'll even liquidate accounts, liquidate an asset, force the sale of something to pay lawyers' fees.
Interesting. So from all we've been talking, I mean, marriage is messy. It can be, right?
It can
certainly
be. Divorcing can be messy.
Divorces.
Oh, you
especially
can't get divorced
long-term.
unless you're married.
That's
Well,
true.
divorce is messy. So is marriage.
What's your take on prenups, right? Like, I feel like some people say it's like a dirty word, like, why would you want to get married and why would you do a prenup, right?
Yeah,
And
I can see how it sounds like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why do you want to get a prenup?
Right.
Right. For sure. It has a little bit of a sting to it. that's why most people that I prepare prenups for, it's a second marriage or third marriage.
They've learned the lesson.
And the other person, it might be probably is their second marriage. So they've been married, they've been through it before. They understand that life doesn't, we can't always anticipate what happens in our lives. So, they're more amenable to signing a prenup without having ill feelings about it. So very rarely actually do I see people. I do see it, but it's more rare now. More rarely do I see people on their first marriage signing prenups. It's not common.
It's not common.
It's not common.
On your second,
people do it.
Yeah, people do it. On your second marriage, did you do it? A prenup yourself or no?
No, I did not.
You did.
Sucker.
So okay. So not once, but not twice. Is there a third time on the horizon?
I was scared to present her with a prenup. No,
Really?
I'm just kidding. There's a little bit of apprehension there.
Yeah.
Coming from an attorney himself.
I thought about it. I'm like, it's not going to go well.
Man, do you ever see yourself getting married again though? Maybe?
I do. It's possible. I might. I won't. I won't say definitely not. I'm not the guy to say that.
Right. I guess your divorces haven't been that bad because some people they have such a nasty divorce. They're like, oh, never again.
They haven't been bad. It was not easy. There's emotions, sadness.
But do you think that you were kind of able to maybe compartmentalize it because of what you've gone through, where you said, well, you know what, let me kind of reserve as much emotion to keep it as fair. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The compartmentalizing,
the hard word to say.
Stress.
Say that 3 times fast.
I don't even want to say
it's hard to say the word.
I can't even say it.
That's why I haven't said it.
You see?
Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize.
I'm just going to skip that.
That might have led to my divorce. Okay. Compartmentalizing.
Compartmentalize.
Prenups, in order for them to matter, in order for the court to enforce them later on, you got to make them reasonable. You got to make them reasonable. The length of the marriage does matter. If someone's together for a very long period of time, the prenup should, and somebody's the big earner, the other person's not, the prenup should provide for an alimony schedule, just to say that there will be no alimony upon the dissolution of marriage. That we both waive our rights to alimony. That's less likely to hold up after a long-term marriage than if you say, okay, if we've been married for 5 years or more, I'll give you, the payor will pay the payee, whatever, an amount of money, $5,000, $2,000.
I'm sure.
And then after 10 years, after 15, it's more.
Sure.
It gives strength to the agreement.
To the case.
But does that get modified as the years go into it? Because you never know how long you're going to be with someone, unless until death do us part.
You could change the agreement during the marriage. Then that would be more of a post-nuptial agreement, like after you.
Right. Okay.
But there's a schedule in there that would say it would be a step up. 5 year. If you're divorced between the 5th year and the 10th year, you could say, you'll pay X amount. The person will pay X amount. Then between 10 and 15 years, if you divorce, the person will say X, pay X amount up, and it'll go up a little bit as the years go on. And a judge will look at that and say, well, you agreed to this. He or she is providing you with X amount. You agreed to this schedule. He's not zipping you, or she's not zipping you. I think it's reasonable. I'm going to hold you to it. So, but these agreements, they don't follow the statute. They cut against the law in some ways. So that's why the judges look at them, and a lot of times they knock them out. They invalidate them, especially as the marriage goes on and on and on, as unconscionable. It's one of those things. If you make it reasonable, it's more likely to be upheld. That's all I can. That's the main, and that the person had their own lawyer to review it, and they understood their rights. They understood the rights that they were waiving if they didn't sign it.
Interesting. Yeah. Does a prenup maybe facilitate the whole, divorce process or anything like that? Given, I guess it depends on what's reasonable that the judge will determine, but.
Well,
Because I mean, can you
guess it's a
fight?
factor, sure.
Yeah, because I mean,
deciding whether to divorce or not and when to divorce, it could be a factor.
No, I'm saying like, let's say, you know, you end up getting divorced, but now you want to claim more. But on the prenup, we agreed on something else. How would then that take place on, you know, once the divorce occurs?
Well, every case is different. I mean, how much more, what wealth has been amassed? Is the prenup unconscionable now because millions of dollars are there that
Like
weren't
a change
there
of
before?
situation.
Yeah,
you make more money or something like that.
So what
the judge will consider that. It's not like a breach of contract case where you signed like, let's
you
say
agreed to
signed
this
a lease a house and they didn't pay the rent. I mean, that's a contract. You breached the contract. Here, there's a lot of different defenses and positions to take in a prenup contract.
Yeah, so a prenup essentially is not really bulletproof, right? It's more, there's...
No, you've seen the movie. I forget the name of the movie, but it was they called it the ironclad prenup.
I'm not sure.
It was with George Clooney. I don't remember the name.
Oh, no.
You haven't watched it?
No, that's a movie I got.
He was a lawyer and he had the ironclad prenup. But there is none. There really is none. It's on a case by case basis to see whether the defenses will defeat the agreement.
I had one final question that I wanted to ask. If somebody in our audience maybe is listening, and in terms of child support and all that stuff, maybe they're listening right now and you're like, man, I feel like I didn't get a fair bargain or fair deal. What are the steps? Because no judgment is final, right? Is there a way for somebody to say, hey, this is there a petition you could do? Or maybe somebody's listening right now and is like, man, I'm going through something similar and, you know, I want to fight this, right?
So you're talking about child support?
Yeah, in terms of
so you could ask for a modification of the child support. We'd have to be able to establish what numbers were used to get to that. Like what were they earning? What was going on at the time that they agreed to that child support? The judge in the court approves the child support. And makes sure that it's correct based upon the incomes and the overnights. It's the job of the court to do that, and even if there's no lawyers involved. So you got to start with that to see what the money was that was coming in, what the circumstances were, the daycare costs, the cost of healthcare insurance, things like that. And if there was any material change, like a big substantial change in income or in the children's needs, the children's needs have gone way up. You can, if there's a substantial change in the circumstances around it, you can ask the court to modify the child support number either up or down.
Yeah, because especially now with everything that's going on, a lot of people, maybe at the point when the judgment was made, they were making more money. Sure. Things have changed. Now they're making a lot less or whatever. And hey, listen, I can't afford this, you know. Right. Let me figure out a way to pay less, you know. Right. Still reasonable, of course, obviously with the needs of the children. But I feel like some people go out of their way to make, maybe the relationship didn't work out or whatever, the marriage didn't work out, and they try to make that other person really pay, right, in a way, and be really vindictive when it comes to that. So a lot of times I feel like maybe people overpay, right, or I don't want to say overpay, but, you know, pay a lot, and then maybe they don't make as much money, and then they're trying to get it adjusted, right? So I guess there is a way for you to come back from that, right?
Right. There just has to be a change in circumstances that was not voluntary. It has to be involuntary. It has to be unexpected.
Okay.
And it has to be substantial. So, you know, you got to have those prongs satisfied to be able to change it. You can't just change it because you got a bad deal or because somebody took advantage of you or because you paid it just to, you know, to get it over with.
So if you say you leave your job and you say, hey, but you voluntarily left the job, right? And then he can't go to the court and be like, hey, I'm unemployed.
No.
Right.
You can't
loopholes.
Right.
Now, then
how much am I paying? Hey, I quit.
Right.
Sorry. No support. Well, that's when we ask the court for an imputation. We ask the court to impute the income to him or her. Because that's what they should be making, you know.
But then now there's no income, but they can garnish like your tax refund.
It's possible,
and all that stuff, and your wages.
If you're behind,
right?
If you're behind, a lot of things can be done.
Right.
If you're behind, your license could be suspended. Your income taxes could be intercepted. Right.
Yep.
You could, if you have the ability to pay the child support that you owe from the past, and you don't, but we can prove that you can be actually incarcerated.
Wow. And they can like
a person could be incarcerated.
They can like withhold your passport and stuff like that.
Your passport could be suspended.
Jesus.
In order for you to be incarcerated, you have to be found in contempt, which we don't have debtor's jail. Like, you can't put anyone in jail for not having the money to pay something.
Sure.
Including child support. But if you can prove that the person can pay it,
they don't
want to when they have a means to pay it, but they don't, then the judge could order him to be taken into custody, a pickup order or whatever, and then they set a purge amount. The purge amount would be the amount that the judge thinks you can pay to get out, and then that's what gets you out of jail.
Almost like a settlement. Yeah, like a settlement. Almost.
Yeah, like let's say sometimes I have people that owe like $100,000 and unpaid child support.
No way.
Yeah, and then I get the judge. They don't pay their support again. Usually you've violated the court order a few times before the judge says, "Okay, I'm going to incarcerate him." You've got to really make the judge angry. The judge usually on the first one is not going to do that.
Put you in jail, yeah.
Right, but then the judge may see, Mr. Brady wants him to come up with 100,000. I don't think he can do that. You know what? But I think he can come up with 10. So, it's not 100, but it's something. So they may take him into custody, and he waits there until someone comes with 10, or he gets the 10 to purge himself out of the
So you have to stay in jail until you can produce the funds that the court.
Well, yeah, you're incarcerated.
Yes.
It's like a bail bond.
Yeah, like a bail.
Yes. Yeah. It could happen.
That's rough.
It could happen. I'm telling you, you got to pay. People have to pay their child support.
Yeah, pay your child support.
It's really not that much.
It's like Uncle Sam.
It's like a minimum. It's the Florida calculation is the minimum amount of money it takes to raise a child.
But it's based on your income, no? Some people.
It is based on your income, but it's still, the way that the system is, children are a lot more expensive than what child support.
True.
We know, a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
I have one more question that popped into my head.
Right.
Have you ever had a case where divorce was happening, whatever, but then they said, "Hey, we fixed it. We want to stay together."
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes, happened.
How does that occur? Because I assume for them to contact you saying, "Hey, I want to get a divorce."
Right.
It's got to be where, like, do you as an attorney say, "Well, let's talk first, because I don't want you to waste my time," unless you're charging up front. But because do you really want to deal with someone who I got into an argument with my girlfriend yesterday, or my wife yesterday, I want a divorce. Like, you would obviously say, maybe you need therapy, not an attorney right now.
Yeah.
Or so how deep into it, like if you've had, an experience, if you can share that, what occurred.
Sure. Well, in a particular case, I could tell that, the person was distraught. They were not happy with having to do it. They wanted to remain married, and I just asked them if they've tried to reconcile. If they've seen a marriage counselor, I recommend some. I recommend a few.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have.
So you outsource that? Yeah, because at the same time, you also don't want to waste your own time either, because you want to take on a client that they're serious about the divorce. So do you kind of like do that first? Like, hey, have you met this? Like almost like a checklist. Like, did you? No, yeah, seriously. Did you speak with the counselor? Did you go to therapy or anything before?
Not in every case, but the ones that I feel like
there's still something there,
right?
I do ask people, "Is this what you want? Is this what you want? Are you sure that?" This is
but imagine a lot of people, they'll just say it from emotion at the moment, like, no, I can't do it anymore. But then
things change, feelings change.
Circumstances
change. I've had people work out their marriage and stayed married.
Really?
We dismissed the case. I've asked for a stay, where we file a motion for stay, where the judge would just stay the case and hold it, not require us to take any action. It can just sit while the parties attempt to reconcile. Man. So I've done that before. On one occasion, when we were at the final hearing with my client and the other party was there with their lawyer, and we had a settlement agreement, we had a parenting plan for children, and we have a final judgment for the judge to enter that day to divorce them. And both of them started crying in court.
Oh.
And they hugged and kissed each other, and they stayed married.
And you're like, man, all this work for nothing.
No. I bet Brady's still collected though,
Yeah,
right?
you got
And
that
he
check.
put the work, right?
You got the check.
I'm sure he paid for our services.
Yeah, because I mean, you still put all the work up front, you know.
Yeah, but because I remember the other lawyer and I.
You're getting a little watery eyed. Are you tearing up about this story?
No.
Screw these people.
No, the other lawyer and I at the beginning of the case were like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like these people want to get divorced.
Oh,
You know, I think there were some issues and they resolved them, and that was the story. I think everyone in the courtroom started clapping.
oh my God!
It was like a courtroom full of people because
Yeah.
when you're on that calendar to go in and have the agreement reviewed and the support guidelines reviewed by the judge, and then the judge just signs the final judgment right there. There are probably 20 something cases on the calendar, so you have a full courtroom full of people.
Oh, wow.
For uncontested divorce.
It's like a
calendar.
movie.
But
Yeah, it's like a
waiting,
cattle
what's going
call.
on.
We call it a cattle call.
Oh yeah.
Just a lot of people with their names on a list, and so the courtroom is full.
Do these things get recorded? Because this is
They
a
are
good,
recorded.
This is a good plot for a movie.
They
You
are
should send this to Lionsgate or Paramount Studios.
No, there's better stories than that.
Seen it all.
Yeah, I've seen it all. I've seen a lot.
Have you ever, just really quickly, and then we're going to, I guess, wrap it up. Have you ever seen like the same client twice, maybe multiple times?
Yeah. Maybe a client said, "Hey, I want to." We fixed it, and then they come back the next week, or a couple years later, or with a second marriage.
Or they do go through with the divorce, and they come back out and it didn't work out again.
What's up, Brady?
Well, I've had clients. Yes, I've had clients, repeat clients.
No
Really?
way.
I have.
I guess it didn't
How
work
does
out again.
how does that go?
I had one client where I prepared a prenuptial agreement for him. Then he divorced. I handled the divorce.
Okay.
And then he came back. I handled I prepared another prenuptial agreement, and then also handled that divorce.
Must have been one hell of a
Yeah.
prenup.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you did a good job. We'll come back to you.
So there have been some repeat clients.
That's
Wow.
hilarious.
And sometimes I'll get a phone call from him, and I'll be like, "Oh my,
Yeah.
Nah.
please!"
You see that
don't
number
tell
on
me."
your phone, you're like, oh, shit.
'Cause he got married again.
Oh,
So he's married now.
did you do
Married now?
his
I can't.
third?
Of course, I can't tell you who it is.
No,
right
no.
now.
No, it's okay. Did you do his third prenup?
The third time he did not
Do a prenup.
do a prenup.
He's like, man, at this point, screw it. If it doesn't work out,
but
that's it.
shouldn't you, I mean, I don't know. Couldn't you have been like, "Hey, buddy, should we do this the third time?"
Maybe marriage is not for you.
We had that conversation after the second one.
Oh, my God.
So what did you say when he said, "Hey, I'm getting married again"?
Oh man, I just laughed. We both laughed. He's the kind of guy that would just think that I would think it was funny.
Right.
Like he would be mad if I didn't laugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had a good laugh and we talked about that, and I was like, good luck.
Good luck, bud.
Best of luck to him, right?
Godspeed.
Well, all right. So before we go wrap it up, and we're gonna take some pictures and everything. Not yet, but hold that thought. We do like to have a final thoughts. So for that, pretty much, it's you can either look at the camera, or you can look at us, and pretty much saying final words, something that you would probably say to your younger self, or maybe something that you would want to advocate to someone, or maybe any advice for anyone watching. Life, maybe within your field, whatever it is. Floor is yours, and as well, please, if you can promote yourself as well, who you are, where you work,
Sure.
maybe a phone number. Stage is yours, however you want to go about it.
Look at the camera.
Wherever you want. You talk to me, you can look at the camera, whatever you want.
Well, again, my name is William Brady. People call me Bill Brady. People call me Brady. My law firm is Brady Law Firm, PA, and we're located in Coral Gables. We're at 100 Almeria Avenue, Suite 360. That's Coral Gables, Florida. The phone number is 305-358-7688, 305-358-7688. We do have a website. You can just Google Brady Law Firm, and it should come up without a problem. We do. I do some consultations over the phone, sometimes in the office, whatever people prefer, by Zoom. At this time, also, that's how we do a lot of our consultations. We have a great staff. We're ready to help anybody who needs to file a case or just wants advice. In closing, I would say that before marrying, I think you need to have your affairs in order, like we talked about before. You need to have a plan. You need to find someone you really enjoy being with. If you're going to have children, financial planning is very important. And if it doesn't work out, if you have children, just treat the other person with respect. And that's what I would say.
Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
And
Bill.
if it goes south, you guys know who to call.
Exactly. Bill, it's been a pleasure to have you. You were tremendous and very insightful.
Yes. So with that being said, it is time to break up. And Bill, thank you so much for coming on, man.
My pleasure.
It really
I had a
was.
great time. Thanks for having me.
No, and what we love about, what we're doing is obviously, trying to educate, help. And as we go into this whole professional field of getting experts on, again, the idea is to pretty much share those stories and those experiences to, again, continue educating and spread positive messages and stuff. So again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
So before we wrap it up, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the notification bell, and if you haven't already or you're on the go, you can listen to us on Spotify and iTunes. Follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok.
And the website, coffeebreakup.com. Check us out.
Buy some merch. We need more merch.
Buy a lot.
And then buy some more so we can make more merch. Then you can buy some more merch. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Till next time.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time.
Ciao.
Till next time.